is where it becomes a slippery slope. In theory, as a referee, you could go under timidity and say that you didn't want to fight. I'm telling you guys, though, and I think, Matt, I want you to jump in on this. If a fighter says I'm dizzy and they have taken an illegal strike, you got to end the fight, because that opens you guys up to lawsuits and all sorts of bad things. You can imagine a guy loses and then he appeals. And he says I was dizzy, and now he's suffering all sorts of horrible maladies. Andrew Glenn, again, that's a clear foul, right? He could have warned him, could have taken a point, could have taken 2 points. He could have disqualified. He chose to disqualify. Had Terry wanted to continue, I think Andrew would have taken 1 point, maybe two. It was definitely egregious. And the one foul that you do see in bare knuckle all the time are punches to a grounded fighter. And again, it goes back to the fact that 95% of the roster is in MMA. Do I think Trujillo was doing that intentionally? Absolutely not. He forgot. He was told 11,000 times. It was sold out that night in Denver. It's loud. He's fighting in his hometown. The kid got excited and forgot. Still illegal. Andrew Glenn, the
Oh,
ref, was put in a tough situation. I'm dizzy. I can't continue. No doctor's going to say to a fighter, "You're not dizzy." They're going to say, "Okay, that's why it was ruled as a disqualification." Matt, will you jump in on this? What you would do in that situation if the fouled fighter says, "I'm dizzy" to the doctor and I can't continue?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of our refs would basically agree that the fight's over. And I
Yeah,
know
it has to
Nate,
be.
yeah, Nate and Brent are on here, and they would probably agree with me on that statement as well. If a doctor comes up and assesses and a fighter says, I'm dizzy and can't see, I think the general consensus right then and there is we're done.
Yeah, and look, I hate to turn this into a litigious thing, but guys, we all know the world we live in 2024. And can you imagine that he loses on timidity, or he's told you have to fight, and then he gets knocked out? The lawsuits coming your way. It's brutal. It's like that. If you went out of a fight, say one of two things: I can't see, or I'm dizzy, and that will get you out of a fight every single time. It's a tough situation. You're going to see some unexpected stuff. Clearly a foul. Intent doesn't even matter there, because I don't think that Trujillo did it maliciously. Andrew Glenn doesn't think he did it maliciously. He's an MMA kid who got excited in front of a sold out crowd in his hometown, and he acted stupid and did something, and he went, "Oh my god, I forgot," because I've never fought bare knuckle. I'm an MMA kid. Kerry
Sean.
didn't like the fight, won it out, so there you go. It's a disqualification. Any questions on that?
Yeah, Sean. If he had been okay, now I know Abel personally. I've known him for years. He's not a bad guy, but
No, he's a really good kid. That's why I said I don't think there was any intention or malice whatsoever. Not at all.
but
None.
if he kind of has a history of kind of being out of control, would you
Yep.
play that in a factor of like 2 points instead of one, or would you
I
just look
so
at
Yeah, I think you can. I mean, really, in John McCarthy, Jack Reese, they always talk about the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And I love it especially from John, because he's a retired LAPD officer. Look, the letter of the law is, if there's injury, you should give 2 points. However, as a referee, if you feel that that's going to settle him down, take 2 points. I don't have video for this, but in Kansas City on the hair pulling, we know that guy. He's been around forever. He's a complete goofball, and he was cheating. The referee took 2 points from him on the hair pull because it's a Kansas referee. He's a known guy. Had it been someone else, it probably would have been a hard warning or 1 point. So as a referee, I think absolutely. That's why I'm a big advocate of knowing the fighters, knowing their personalities. Like I was saying with Jack Grady, if there's one person in all of BKFC who's going to throw that illegal headbutt, it's Jack Grady, right? Trujillo can be a little bit of an out of control guy. So there enough. So absolutely, you could take 2 points. Well, in your rights to take 2 points, because you're trying to get the train back on the tracks. And if 2 points sends a message and it settles him down, by all means do so. Yeah, great question.
thank you.
All right.
But
So,
just
oh,
a
yeah,
point
go
of
ahead,
a
Ansel.
question.
Please.
And it's outside of that. What's the weight difference that you allow between fighters? Because these two guys look like they were totally two different weight classes.
No, they were 45ers.
Really?
So BKFC follows MMA starting at
Mhm.
105 pounds. The difference is where MMA goes from 155 to 170 to 185. Bare knuckle, I say BKFC, it's the sport of bare knuckle. There's 155, 165, 175, 185, 205, then to heavyweight.
Okay.
Because they're
There's the
MMA
last
guys,
one.
they
I
rehydrate a lot differently than boxing people.
was just
But
saying, Angel.
this was a 145 fight. Go ahead, Brett.
No, I was just saying, Abel's like 5'4". He just looks bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Okay.
we all know MMA kids can rehydrate 22, 24, 28 pounds. It happens, right? Again, the sport is bare knuckle fighting. Culturally, this is MMA. It might change, but culturally, this is an MMA show. It's MMA people, MMA fighters. This is really MMA. I wish it were more even. I wish we had more boxing people, but right now that's where it is. And with MMA people, you get the massive weight cuts and the massive rehydrations. All right. If you'll go back to the one that we skipped, which is Roundstone and Cermak. So Stan Cermak is in the black trunks. Ruben Roundstone is in the blue trunks. Dan Murgliata, who I think we all know is the referee. So Stan calls time there. So the clock is counting down, but that's the graphic error. Dan's called time. There we go. All right, this is a great teaching round. There's a lot here on both. Okay, so the audio's not on, so I don't know how evident it was. Dan took 2 points there. So let's talk from the judges first, and we'll get into the referees. What's the score of this round? Who wants
I
to
would
be
scratch
brave?
that one. 9-8 blue
Tell me why it's 9-8.
because he took 2 points right from red. You said But I
So
had Ben winning the
Cermak
round.
recorded the knockdown and then lost 2 points on the illegal strikes after the knockdown.
8-8.
Right.
Okay,
Nate, you're
so that was
correct.
my question. I couldn't tell if that was considered a knockdown or
Yeah,
if he
I
considered
didn't catch the
that.
count on the
Right.
knockdown.
Right. So it's tough because the audio is not on. So if you heard the natural sound audio, Dan's wearing a microphone, you would hear Chris Lydla and me commentating. So you guys are at a disadvantage because you're not hearing. So I'll walk through the sequence of what happened. So
Can I ask
so
a
the
question
answer,
before you do real quick?
yeah, please, Nate.
Did Dan call the doctor in to have him checked out because it was a concussive foul, or we didn't see
Yeah,
that?
he did. You didn't see it during the replay, but I called that from site in Edmonton, so he absolutely did. So the first thing from a judging perspective, that's an 8-8 round. Again, how you turn it on your scorecard, whatever, but that's an 8-8 round. Why is it an 8-8 round? Cermak knocks down Roundstone, and then after the knockdown, he illegally strikes him while he's a grounded fighter. The illegal action after the knockdown does not unring the bell. That does not negate the knockdown. What it negates, though, is the count. So the knockdown counts. That's a 10-8 round for Cermak. Then Dan deducted 2 points because Cermak hit Roundstone illegally while he was grounded. Takes 2 points. That makes it an 8-8 round. That's the judging. So let's talk about the refereeing. I'm a huge Dan Mergliotta guy. He's a close friend and he's a spectacular ref. He's our number one guy in bare knuckle. You all know what he does in MMA. Phenomenal. So let's look at Dan's procedure. The knockdown 100% counts. I look at if we have NFL fans here. If a wide receiver catches a touchdown and then they would head slap the safety, that's the penalty that's assessed after the touchdown. That happens, right? And not to mix our sports, but you don't negate the touchdown because the penalty, the foul happened afterwards. Same thing here. You cannot, as a referee, negate the knockdown. The knockdown happened. That doesn't change. The illegal punches happened after the knockdown. Dan immediately calls time. Excellent procedure. You're not counting because now you're on the 5-minute injury clock. Dan did call in the doctor while we were in replay. Doctor said no problem. Roundstone said, man, I want to continue. What are you talking about? Let's go, man. Come on, let's go. Dan felt it was egregious. He also looked at the fact that these are two very large heavyweights who both know how to punch. Dan felt that there was injury because of the force of those illegal blows, so he elected to take 2 points. Roundstone absolutely wanted to continue. The ringside physician, Dr. Muzi, felt it was safe for him to continue, and the fight continued on that. You saw Dan, and it picked up a little late because we were in replay. Dan went to all three judges, 2 points, and so indicated that. It's tough for you guys, again, seeing it here because we don't have the audio. If you had been there in Edmonton, it would have been clear to you as judges. So from judging, that's 8-8. It's a 10-8 round, and then the 2-point deduction. And refereeing, that's perfect. As referees, I will tell you, you're not going to see headbutts. You're not going to see low blows. What you are going to see are people punching other people on the ground. I have yet to see, we go back to Trujillo, same thing with Stan Cermak. I've yet to see anyone intentionally punch someone on the ground, but we've probably had over 30, maybe over 40 illegal punches to grounded fighters. In the scope of over 1,000 fights, that's not a lot, but that's still a decent amount. It's MMA people who forget. Also, as you see, that was kind of a sloppy sequence. Roundstone's falling forward. Also, these are people, I'm going to talk about the ring sizes in a second, Brian. Thank you. These are people who are getting excited. You know, it's a new sport. Both of these guys, this is their BKFC debut. They're both fighting sold out again. We were in Edmonton. That's Cermak's hometown. He got overexcited. So great refereeing by Dan. Immediately takes control of the situation. Referees rule the knockdown and then call time. You don't count and then call time. Once the illegal strikes happen on the ground after the knockdown, time, now you're on the 5-minute injury clock. The difference between the previous fight, Trujillo and Kerry, in this fight is that Kerry said, I'm dizzy, I want out. Roundstone said, come on, man, let's go. I want to go. I want to go. He would have started sooner, but he had to be medically assessed. Question on the size of the ring. There is no set standard in the unified rules, just like in boxing or MMA. BKFC uses 2 rings. This was a smaller venue, and we also had a lot of first-time BKFC fighters. They use their smaller ring. Like when you saw the crazy fight, the hair pull fight with from Los Angeles, that was a huge crowd, big venue. We used the bigger ring, but there's nothing set in the unified rules. All that said is you have to use an enclosure. You can use a cage or a ring. That's up to the commission. Any questions on this fight?
Yeah, just a quick question. So on that fight with the knockdown,
Mhm.
I know you've seen a lot of bare knuckles. Was it a punch? Did he take a knee or did he get knocked down?
No, he got knocked down.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
in even if he took in Ansel, even if he took a knee, it's the same thing. It's
Mhm.
still a knockdown.
Right. I know it's
He
not,
definitely
but
got knocked down with a body shot, and both
okay.
these guys are
Okay, I
over
didn't see that.
250 pounds. But if he had
Okay.
taken a knee, it's the same thing. It's still illegal. Anything, just
Yeah.
like in pro boxing, anything but the soles of your shoes make you a grounded fighter, and you cannot legally strike a grounded fighter.
Is the back of the head the same as MMA?
100%.
And
Yep.
then, do you see a lot of that? Because I feel with like the clinch.
No.
No.
Nope, we really don't. It's surprising. There are a lot of things that have surprised me in bare knuckle. I thought we would get more eye pokes. We almost never get eye pokes. I thought we'd see more back of the head. We almost never get back of the head. So bare knuckle is a 180-degree sport. MMA is a 360-degree sport. For instance, in MMA, I can attack my opponent standing from behind. I could try to get a hook in standing. I could punch them in the back as long as I'm not targeting the spine, the back of the head, or the nape of the neck legally. In bare knuckle, you can't. Just like boxing, it's a 180-degree sport. We're going to see some clinch in a second, but as long as they are not targeting the back of the head, that's fine. I mean, straight punches get through, but I'm telling you, it has not been an issue. And I'm surprised, but we've seen enough now with over 1,000 fights that we're really seeing patterns, and it just does not happen. Not saying it won't, but it just doesn't happen. If it does, the exact same thing you're looking for in MMA. It's the back of the head, the nape of the neck, the spine.
I had a question on the knockdown.
Yeah, Brent,
My
please.
video is a little choppy and I may have missed it, but what is the illustration or the language that Dan used to indicate to the judge that that was a knockdown? I didn't see that he had counted that as a knockdown, just as the foul.
So that's a great question. Some referees do what Jack Reese does, where they're very emphatic on ruling a knockdown. The answer is Dan didn't, but he's Dan, so he got away with it. As a younger referee, I would tell you to be a little more theatrical and really give a big knockdown count. Dan's awesome and he's a legend. He didn't. However, Dan clarified personally to all three judges, knockdown. Now I'm taking the points.
So, and then the second part of that, is there hand signals or language that the refs need to use for slips and or knockdowns or anything like that, or is that up to the referee?
Nope, that's great. So slips 100%. It's like you give the big safe sign in baseball. And again, I say be as theatric as possible, almost like a pro wrestling referee. You're selling it to the person in the last row. It helps everybody. And especially in a sport like this, where there are a lot of knockdowns and a lot of slips, it's a big safe sign. Knockdown, if anybody watches boxing and they see Jack Reese points down to the canvas and will yell out knockdown. Some referees do that, some don't. It's more of a boxing thing. To a younger referee, I would definitely teach you to do that. But the what you're seeing in the body language is, and when I started refereeing 25 years ago, they didn't teach that. Jack Reese came up with that maybe 15 years ago. But the body language you're seeing is that you're then moving the standing fighter back, and that's indicating, and then you're picking up the count. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, go ahead and go next video, please. I'm trying to be very respectful of everybody's time. I want to show this. We talked about active clinch. This is Nick Behrens, who refs in the UFC too, and he's in our rotation. He's one of our top 3 guys in bare knuckle. So you have Howard Davis, who's a rare boxer in bare knuckle. He's in the white trunks. You have Kai Stewart in the yellow trunks. Kai Stewart was an NAIA wrestling All-American. He was a Montana State high school wrestling champion. 2 very different styles. watch the active clinch, then we'll talk about it. This is A+ refereeing from Nick Behrens on a really, really difficult fight and round. Thank you, Matt. All right, so we're not judging this round, but Kai Stewart, the wrestler, he obviously won that 10-9, right? A+ from Nick Behrens, the referee. So we talk about an active clinch. What is an active clinch? An active clinch is that you are throwing punches with intent while you're clinching. So if you come out of boxing as a boxing referee and you've not worked in MMA, or you never wrestled or grappled or did jujitsu or judo, I would strongly encourage you to Google some of these terms, look them up, find videos on YouTube. You have to forget a lot about what you were trained as a boxing referee, because you want if you kill the clinch. And we've had some really high level boxing people come in and do spectacular. And we've had some really high level boxing refs come in and fail miserably. You have to let the fighters go into clinch. If you don't let them fight in the clinch, it's almost like refereeing MMA and not allowing submissions. You're taking a massive part of this game out. An active clinch is that a fighter in a clinch is throwing a punch with at least one hand, and they are throwing with intent. They're not doing the pitter patter punches. Underhooks, for those of you who've wrestled or know jujitsu, you know these terms. Underhooks, overhooks. If we were teaching in person, I would have fighters and we would demonstrate. A whizzer position, what's called a half tie plum or a single collar tie. You can't side headlock. You can't come over the neck and squeeze like in a guillotine. You can't come over the neck and stabilize, what's called a head chancery in folk style wrestling. It's an upper body attack. You're not able to knee legally in there. You can grab the waist. You can't grab below the waist. You can't tie up the legs. You can't trip. You can't sweep. So Kai Stewart is pulling everything out of his college wrestling, folk style wrestling playbook to great intent. He's our 145 champion, by the way. The kid's spectacular. He's 23 years old. He's kind of the first wave of people coming into this sport who are just training this sport. He's had one pro MMA fight, but he's great in this. In boxing, Howard Davis knocks Kai Stewart out inside of 2 rounds. Kai Stewart winds up winning this fight, shut him out 50-45. So as a referee, if you come out of boxing, understand the clinch, fight your instincts. You're going to want to break, but let it go. If you're an MMA referee, fight your instincts to let them bog down in the clinch. You have to remember, in bare knuckle, in BKFC, we have 5 2-minute rounds. If you let guys waste time in the clinch or women waste time in the clinch, you might kill 40, 50, 60% of that round. People have to have one hand free and they have to be throwing punches with intention. Now, think about, for my MMA referees on this call, think about the stand-up rule in MMA. It's the top fighters in activity that determines when you stand up. It's never the bottom fighters in activity. I can triangle, I can body triangle or close guard from the bottom. That doesn't get me off the bottom, right? In MMA, we know that it's the activity or the inactivity of the top fighter that determines when you stand up. Same thing applies to bare knuckle. If the defensive fighter is trying to tie up, if they're gripping their hands, they're going an S grip, a gable grip, a baseball bat grip, that doesn't get them out of there unless they're negating the offense of the attacking fighter. I could body lock as the defensive fighter, but if I'm still getting hit hard, you have to let that go as a referee. It's if I grip up double underhooks, a body lock, if I'm doing something like that, come over in a guillotine position, now you're breaking because I've negated the offense. Just remember, though, just like in the stand-up rule where it's the top, not the bottom, in bare knuckle, you determine when to break the clinch based on the activity or the inactivity of the attacking fighter. A lot of clinches are 50-50 where they are both attacking. This is different because Howard Davis is a straight boxer. He's never wrestled. He's never done MMA. And again, Kai Stewart was an NAIA wrestling All-American. Clinch is the most intricate part of this sport. It's the most difficult part of this sport to referee. It's part art and it's part science. You will feel it in there. Your threshold for when to break a clinch is going to be different for 115-pound women as it's going to be for gigantic male heavyweights, because the 115. So feel it. It's science. But the main thing you're falling back on, referees, is the attacking fighter with at least one hand and they're throwing with intent, not just the pitter patter shots to stay busy. They are throwing with intent. That's when you let the clinch go. The art and the science comes from, if you break them too soon, you're out. And if you let it go too long, then you're just destroying the fight because then they just bog down in the clinch. And every fight is going to be different. Any questions
Sean,
on the active clinch?
yeah, I have one question, and this is more of kind of knowing this guy's a wrestler or seeing he's a wrestler.
Right?
Just like bare knuckle rules. I saw where some of the times he would enter a clinch, like he'd almost go into like a half-ass like wrestling shot, no
Yeah, he
punches.
actually dragged his knee at one point. Did you see that? He dragged his knee on one of the
Is
shots.
that legal, or do you guys want them to throw as they
Nope.
come in?
Absolutely legal as long as it's an upper body attack. Absolutely legal. It's not only legal, it's really smart and effective. Absolutely.
That's what I was thinking, 'cause
Now,
he looked like
he's got to throw in the clinch. He can't just do. Now, if he were just doing that and gripping up, you could definitely warn him for that. But his entries are fine because he's punching after the entries.
Got you. Okay.
But yeah, if you got someone who's a wrestler who doesn't know how to punch and all they want to do is enter and then treat it like it's Greco-Roman and just upper body lock, you can warn them. You can tell them it's timidity. You can tell them they have to throw punches. At the end of the day, they have to throw punches. But yeah, Kai Stewart, and no one in BKFC fights like Kai Stewart. A lot of it's because he's old. He went right from wrestling in college to fighting in this sport. But yeah, if you guys see, he almost drags his knee on his single leg entry on that. As long as they are targeting upper body, if they drop lower body, if he's dragging his knee and he gets caught by his opponent, yeah, that's a legal strike because it would be a lightning strike. But yeah, to the question, you guys saw it on the screen. Let's say he was dragging and he got caught. Yeah, I can't penalize Howard Davis there because Howard Davis doesn't certainly expect that. I would say that's a legal punch. And Kai Stewart kind of forgot, and he never did that again. I've never seen him drag his knee before or since. But in theory, if someone were doing that, and if someone were a wrestler and they were continually dragging their knee as a referee, get on them because they cannot do that. they're supposed to keep their feet at all times. It was so quick and it was kind of a mistake. Nick let it go. But had it happened again, Nick definitely would have gotten on him about it. More questions on the clinch? I would encourage you guys to watch a lot of BKFC and get the feel for it. You know, as great as Bergliotta is, he's gotten better with it. Nick, Andy, our main guys, we use Kerry Hatley, Mike Beltran. It's different. Whether you come from boxing, kickboxing, MMA, boxing, kickboxing, or Muay Thai, the clinch is still unique in this sport. You have to be far more patient than your boxing training tells you, and far less patient than your MMA training tells you. I know we're at 2 hours. If you guys are good, will indulge me with 10 more minutes. I just want to go 10 more minutes, and I'll get everybody out of here if everyone's cool with that.
Rock on.
Sounds
Let's do it.
good.
You guys all good with that? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So we're going to show 2 more videos, Matt. I want if you'll show the Ruben War, Robbie Peralta video. Thank you, sir. Robbie Peralta in the pink. I'm sorry, Robbie Peralta in the white, Ruben War in the pink. All right, 7-second knockout. You guys will see it again. When you see the replay, watch Dan Mergliotta because this is A+ refereeing here. This is phenomenal refereeing. Ruben told me he rehearsed that sequence thousands of times off of scratch to start the fight. It was a completely premeditated, rehearsed sequence of punches. Just happened to work. I think the replay comes right after this. That's a diligent doctor from the California Commission asking Ruben if he's okay. Sorry, I'm not sure why we're in replay yet. We'll get to replay in a second. Here we go. Watch Dan Mergliotta, guys. Watch the referee. Okay. Thank you, Matt. Oh, we can go ahead and watch it one more time. Go ahead and watch this. Yeah, that 3-2 combo he rehearsed and rehearsed. All right. Thank you, Matt. So I mentioned earlier John McCarthy and his, if anyone's taken John's course, which I have multiple times, which is awesome course. I don't think John teaches much anymore, but if he ever does, take John's course. He talks about how fighters fall. Now, if that's MMA, Dan is stepping in immediately to end that fight because Ruben's coming on top of him and he's throwing punches or elbows to end it. And Robbie's in serious jeopardy. Dan's refereeing is phenomenal there. He saw how hard Robbie Peralta fell. He picks up the count and then immediately stops the count. There's no reason to count to 10 seconds there. All you're doing is delaying medical attention for Robbie Peralta. Robbie was fine. didn't go to the hospital. He was fine. He was concussed, but it wasn't a deep concussion. He just got put out and woke back up. But the point is, we're not in 1936. You don't stand over someone who's unconscious and count. Dan did everything right there. He saw how Ruben fell. He saw how Robbie fell. He got Ruben back, went to pick up the count, and then immediately broke off his count, ends the fight, and then in comes the medical team, the physicians from California Commission. That's great refereeing. You've seen a lot of knockdowns where guys are up on one. That goes back to what I was saying. As a judge, all knockdowns are created equal. As a referee, it's the exact opposite. No two knockdowns are ever the same. That's a devastating knockdown. No reason to stand over a guy who's unconscious and count to 10. That's cruel. That's inhumane. That's perfect refereeing. Watch as referees, watch how they fall, watch how they react on the canvas, and see how they are. You know, everybody's a professional on here. There are no novices on this call. All of you guys are high level professionals. You know what a knockout looks like. You know what it looks like when someone gets slept, as opposed to if somebody gets flashed, as opposed to if somebody gets hit hard in the body and takes a knee. Be ready. You don't see a lot of those type of knockouts in BKFC. You see a lot more of what I've been showing you, where people get dropped and they get up at 1 or 2. But those knockouts will happen. Great refereeing on that. End the fight. Get the medical attention. Cool. All right. We got one more video. Does anybody have any questions on that? Any comments
Yeah,
or questions?
I just have one question, Sean. I know.
Yeah, Ansel, please.
Coming from the boxing background, you bring a fight to the center of your ring, you give him final instruction, you send him back to their neutral corner, you send him back to their corner and
Right.
wait for the bell. I don't see that happen here. So is that?
So that's a television issue. It's really, and again, I say culturally we're MMA. You really don't see that in MMA, especially in the UFC, except on the main event.
Okay.
There are referees meetings, and they're given the group meeting, and then they're given the private meeting. That's just for TV. That's what that's for, to speed the TV show along.
Okay.
A lot of that I can tell you as a gigantic fight nerd and a proudly a gigantic fight nerd. A lot of that historically is because if you watch boxing, there are 2 or 3 televised fights, whereas in MMA, there are 11, 12, or 13 televised fights. Bare knuckles the same. We're doing 10, 11, 12 fights on every card. At boxing, because there are fewer fights on a broadcast, it builds more drama. But believe me, Ansel, everybody is getting multiple instructions. We're just not going through that procedure. We're getting right to it.
Okay.
But it's strictly, and you could have another production that comes in, another promotion with their producer who wants to do it. As long as they clear that with the commission, that's fine. The number one takeaway, though, is obviously they're getting the rules meeting in the back. Cool. Great question. All right. We're going to finish. We have one more fight. We're going to show 2 rounds and we'll have final questions. You guys are an awesome group. Matt said you guys were high level. You guys are definitely high level. All right. This is in England. In England, we didn't have a commission there. There is no commission in England. There's the BBBC, which is the British Boxing Board of Control. They don't do bare knuckle or MMA. So we were under the ISKA on this. I'm giving a little bit of a caveat. We're going to watch 2 rounds. We're going to score round 1, then you'll see what happened. We're going to score both rounds, actually. So you have Rico Franco. He's on the left. And with the braided hair, that's Caleb Harris from Lake, Mississippi. And this is our last video, guys. We'll have discussion, and I'll thank everybody. Matt, you can let it run in the 60 seconds while we talk. So again, that's Caleb Harris. You see there, black and American flag trunks. That's Rico Franco there. Scores for round one.
10-9 red.
Yeah, for Caleb Harris, right? American flag trunks.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yep. I think that's the consensus. You'll see why I'm asking. That plays into what you're going to see next. Say again. Here we go. Referee calls time. There was something in the corner. That's why he called time. The corner hadn't cleared out. This is why I'm a big proponent of athletic commissions. But again, we were in England. We're under ISKA. No disrespect to ISKA, but we were under ISKA. They didn't clear out the corner, and there was something with the turnbuckle. That's why the ref called time. Matt's inspectors would have caught that. By the way, this has nothing to do with the video. It's just a random thing in there. All right, here we go. All right. Thanks, Matt. So I'll give you guys the precursor. It's not my style to criticize people. I like to show things that go well, not things that go poorly. Dave Jackson's the referee there. I always have a tinge of reluctance to show this because I don't like to light people up. That's horrible, though. I mean, guys, there's no other way to look at that. That is horrible.
It's hard to watch.
It is hard to watch.
Yeah. Sean, do you see on the first knockdown? I thought on the first knockdown the guy was dazed and confused.
He was. He
Okay.
was. The third knockdown, he spits out his mouthpiece. The fifth knockdown, he goes in the fetal position as he's trying to grab the ring ropes. That was actually 6 knockdowns in that round. The referee didn't call the 6th. He should have counted the 6th one. Whether the referee counted or not, the reality is 6 times blows by Rico Franco dropped Caleb Harris. These are 165 pounders. You know, we go back to watch how fighters fall. You look at Entenberg Gates, the one we showed where it was 3-1 in knockdowns, 135 pounders. None of those knockdowns were big. Those punches were big. The English guy who won, he's fighting Austin Trout for our world title in Spain in October. I mean, he punches like he's 190 pounds. John McCarthy, and I quote John a lot because I think John's awesome, but I know I talk about what John says, watch how fighters fall. You know, you saw how Caleb, he's confused. He spits out the mouthpiece. He's in the fetal position at one time. John also says something in his training, which is there can be fights where fighters take such a beating, they're never the same person again. So Caleb Harris was one of our mainstays in BKFC. First fought on BKFC 2. That was his 11th fight. He is a very, very sensitive person. I know that might sound counterintuitive. He's in this sport. I really like Caleb. He's a super introspective, sensitive guy. This fight was 2 years ago. He's never fought since. I don't think he's ever going to fight again. He's 29 years old. This fight wrecked him. If the referee would have stopped that on the third or the fourth knockdown, Caleb probably would have fought 3 times for us since then. He had to fly all the way back to Mississippi from the north of England. I can't imagine that was a pleasant plane ride. And in 2 years, he's never fought, and I really don't think he'll ever fight again. There was no need for that. It's funny, when I showed this on the California training, I said, what are the judges' scorecards? And Andy Foster cut me off and said, it doesn't matter. That was a disgrace. I will tell you, as judges, though, let's just go through the exercise. We can have all the moral outrage we want, and we can be disgusted all we want. Guess what? You still have to turn in a scorecard. So that was 5 knockdowns. You can't hear it. The 6th knockdown, the referee said, was after the bell. It still hurt Caleb Harris. 5 knockdowns. So just very quickly on this, and we'll talk about the refereeing some more. What's your scorecard? Again, all the moral Moses Lee, correct, 10-4. All the moral indignation aside, you have to turn in a scorecard there, right? 10-4, absolutely. We were saying earlier, can you go below 10-6? Absolutely, you can. Should this fight have gone? Absolutely not. So I won't show it because it's gruesome. Caleb gets knocked down 3 more times, and he finally gets knocked out in the 5th round. Great, you know? I hate to pick on Dave Jackson, the referee. It's not his best work. No reason for that. From a judge's perspective, you have to think, wow, that sucked. I still have to turn in a scorecard. That's my responsibility as a judge. From a referee, you know, is there a point where Caleb Harris is going to come back and win that fight? It gets to a point of being cruel, actually. And again, 24 months later, a kid who fought 11 times in 4 years has fought 0 in 2 years, ruined his career.
So
Think
Sean,
about that as refereeing.
Sean, you said that was the 2nd round, right?
And that's why I showed you guys the 1st round, and I think that's germane to this because Caleb won the 1st round. I don't know, but I'm guessing that was in part of the referee's head that Harris won the 1st round. Doesn't matter though; it should not matter.
But you said the fight went to how many rounds? That was the end.
It went to the 5th round. He got knocked down 3 more times and got knocked down in the 5th round.
But
As
I mean,
I'm commentating, I'm like, this is horrible.
so obviously the referee didn't do his job. I would have stopped it after the 3rd. You could have stopped it after
Yes,
the
sir.
1st knockdown, but the 3rd one definitely. But
Yep.
the fighter went back to his corner. What
Yep.
was his corner thinking?
Exactly. This is where, you know, when I was on the Kansas Commission, I would always give the speech to our inspectors that corners have to be a fighter's advocate and not their bully. And I think he was getting bullied by his corner. As sensitive and introspective as Caleb is, that kid is tough as nails, and he wasn't going to quit. He was not going to quit that fight. He could have been knocked down 200 times, and as long as his brains weren't scrambled, he would not quit. There's no quit in that kid. Yeah, everybody failed him. His corner failed him. The referee failed him. The ISKA failed him. Everybody failed him. And not to be over dramatic, but again, a 29-year-old kid whose career is over, you know?
So, Sean, I've got a question on the protocol here, if I can. So,
yeah,
in Thai fights on a knockdown, we do our 8 count if they're up. We'll make them walk to us, and if we still feel like we don't like what we see, we can have them cut an angle and see how they walk. Is that something that is up to the referee's discretion in bare knuckle, or is that not allowed?
It is. And you'll see, too, on bigger knockdowns, the referee will do that assessment. If you go back to that Patrick Brady-Lewis Rumsey fight, the heavyweights where it was 3-0 on knockdowns and the long count, Andy Glenn does a really good job on the 2nd knockdown of that assessment and on the 3rd knockdown walk towards me. It's the same thing. After they get the full mandatory 8, after those 8 seconds, do whatever you want to do. You know, we talk about Jack Reese with the knockdown. Jack does that too. Take a step forward. Now take a step to the right. Now take a step forward. That's your time as a referee. You need to assess in that time, can this fighter safely continue? Dave Jackson didn't do any of that. All he was
No.
concerned about was, did he beat the 8 count? Let's go to it. Again, I feel bad. I'm picking on the ISK. I'm picking on Dave Jackson. It just, you've got to be better. I can tell you, had that been in the United States or Canada, that would not have happened.
Yeah, there's plenty of evidence there to stop it without having to walk to you after the second, if not
Absolutely.
for sure the third knockdown. I think had he gone through those steps to have him walk to him, you could tell he was on shaky legs when he came out after the second knockdown. Had he done those steps and had him walk to him or cut an angle of one of those two, he could have saved a lot of time and stopped the fight then.
I agree. Or, you know, as a referee, when he spat his mouthpiece out, when he goes
Mhm.
into the
Yep.
fetal position, you know, what are we doing here?
That's
Those are
my
all indicators that he's not there.
Yeah.
I have
We
a
just had a question pop up. Sorry, we just had a question pop up. I just want to address this. You know, could the inspector say that to the referee? Absolutely, because this was ISK. We didn't really have proper inspectors. But yeah, as an inspector, I would want them to say to the referee, you know, hey, this fighter wants out, and the corner's telling them they have to fight. I don't know that, but here's the thing on Caleb. I doubt that Caleb was saying I won out of this fight. In fact, I can tell you with a certainty, Caleb wasn't saying I won out of this fight. But then it's just like your corner's failing you, you know? Ultimately, that falls on the referee, you know? It ultimately falls on the referee. Caleb's not going to quit, and his corner's not going to let him quit. Oh, another question. I'm sorry. I cut somebody off. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I had one question just for the Nate and Brent and maybe Matt Woodruff. Since that's ISKA and we're actually commissioned, I can't remember who told me years ago when I was still coaching, if you're on a knockdown like that and you intentionally spit your mouthpiece out, they want you to call the fight. Like that's your like I give up. I don't know if they want to say whether that's like their
Uh,
outlook on it or how that works.
For me, it depends on the situation. In this situation, like he clearly was giving up, but I mean, they've spit it out to catch their breath and things like that. But
Yep.
Okay.
it
Yeah,
just,
It's never a good
that's
sign. I've never seen someone spit their mouthpiece out and they're doing great. I'll tell you
yeah,
that.
yeah. But
Okay.
it's really your job to just watch them when they fall and see how they're
Yep.
reacting when they're knocked down.
So in that situation, he spit it out on like the 5th count. Like you would have been okay, been like, okay, that's it. That's you basically saying, I'm done.
Yeah, the way he
Yep.
spit it out and curled over, absolutely.
Okay.
you could. I think he should have stopped it before the knockdown where he spit his mouthpiece out.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. It's watching the punch that lands. It's watching how they fall. It's watching their reaction on the ground. It's watching their gait and balance and coordination as they get up. I know when I have no delusions about the levels I refed. I refereed Midwest circuit in the late 90s and early and mid 2000s. I refereed a lot of terrible fights on a low level, but I never had anybody say when I said, "Do you want to continue?" to say no. They would either go silent or they would say, "What?" It's tough for these men and women to say, "I give up, I quit, I won out." So help them get out. Look in their eyes, look at their body language, look at their balance. It's the rare fighter who says, "Yeah, that's enough for me. I'm done. This wasn't for me." You know, especially when these were like probably the second and third 165 pounders in all of BKFC in this fight. You know, these people aren't just like, yeah, I'm done. But, you know, it's cliched. Sometimes you have to protect fighters from themselves. This is a classic example of protecting a fighter from themselves. Yeah, Caleb's corner failed him too. There's no doubt. But ultimately, it's not the corner's responsibility. It's the referee's responsibility. Matt, I'm just curious. Can you walk through what would you have done in this situation in Georgia?
The mouthpiece out?
No, just the whole situation where you're just seeing someone just taking that horrible beating. Would you?
Well,
I know you'd fire the referee afterwards, but what would you be doing as you're watching this?
well, if we got to the point where we made it to the end of this round, I probably, along with the doctor, would go up and tell the ref we're close to being done here. But knowing my refs, I don't think anyone's going to let 5 knockdowns happen.
Right, exactly. This is the only 5 knockdown round we have ever had in BKFC history. I hope it's the only one we ever get. And really, if you think about it, Caleb was dropped 6 times. It's just the referee said that the 6th knockdown was the punch was late. It doesn't matter if it was later on time. He still got knocked down 6 times. The 4 knockdown, and I'll pull that from my next training. The 4 knockdown we had in Kansas City, those were 4 nothing worthless. I fell down knockdowns. So I said no 2 knockdowns are the same in bare knuckle as a referee. So cool. Anything else on this?
So
I'm
just
just
quick.
curious here, but
Ansel, then Brent, go ahead. Whoever, go ahead.
So you say that the referee say the 6th knockdown was late. What does he mean by late?
Well, so he said that. So if you saw at the end of the rounds, Caleb is still down. He said that the punch landed late. That's why he didn't rule that as a 6th knockdown. That the punch was delivered after the bell, but he never warned him either.
So could he disqualify the other guy for hitting after the bell?
I wouldn't disqualify because I would look at intent, and I mean in a flurry like that, I definitely wouldn't disqualify. No, I would if I were refereeing. First of all, I would hope that I would never let it get to that point. But in late punches, I would just say, "Hey, listen to me. Listen for the bell. Come on." If it happens again and again, there's a term called persistent infringement. If you're committing the same foul over and over again, you can do something. If a guy at the end of every round is throwing late, now I'm going to really get on him hard and say, I'm telling you, man, one more time, I'm taking a point. You have got to listen to me and you've got to listen to the bell. In a flurry like that, in a heated exchange, and both these guys are gentlemen. Both these are A+ human beings. There was nothing illegal. And I don't even think the punch was late personally. I think it was a legal punch. Anything else, Brent? I think you wanted to go, or Brent? I'm sorry.
Yeah, mine was my own curiosity. Was there any kind of explanation given by the referee and why he let it go as long as he did? What he thought he saw?
None. And that can be a slippery slope. We don't allow in Kansas, we don't allow third-party sanctioning bodies in our state outside of USA Boxing, which we have to by federal law. But if outside of amateur boxing and USA Boxing, if a fight happens in Kansas, it's under our auspices and control. I'm not and ironically, Corey Schaefer, who's the U.S. president of ISK, is a close friend of mine. But that's I hate to pick on ISK, but that's it. Well, guys, it's 2.5 hours. You guys have been awesome. I apologize keeping everybody longer than I meant to, but great discussion and great videos. So I genuinely thank all of you. Hopefully we'll see you on BKFC. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, Matt has my info. Matt, please give anybody my info if they want to get a hold of me. But you guys were outstanding, and thanks to Matt for putting this on.
Thanks for your time,
John. Appreciate the knowledge here.
Awesome. You guys were great. Thank you so much. See you all. Matt, thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks.
Have a great one, guys.
See you guys. Thank you.